good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Sean Michael Morris, the acting head of pedagogy at GPT Zero and facilitator for today's office hours. This hour is the final session in a series that has been taking place since early May and which makes up some of the content for GPT Zero's Teaching Responsibly with AI certificate program. GPT Zero is hosting this certificate program in order to build awareness and skills amongst teachers about the responsible use of AI at all levels of teaching and learning. In keeping with the mission of preserving what's human in education, the focus here is on your work in your classroom. During today's office hours, we'll be covering GPT-Zero's origin story and the motivation behind building the platform, some changes to the Chrome extension and the writing feedback tool, and you'll have some time of Q&A with our guest speaker. And today we're joined by Edward Tien, the founder and CEO of GPT-Zero. From the moment he conceived of and designed the original GPT-Zero app, from what I hear over the course of 3 days, while still a student at Princeton, Edward has worked tirelessly and, from my experience with him, hopefully, to create a tool that provides teachers and students with a new way to consider the role of AI in writing and education. Now, as we get started, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and to use that space to connect with each other. If you have questions for Edward, please use the Q&A function in Zoom to post them. There are going to be a lot of folks in attendance today, so the Q&A function is probably the best way for us to keep questions organized and to answer as many as possible. And one more note, the recording of this session will be shared by email on Monday next week, along with the Edward slides. That email will also include a link to a final survey for the program. And if you have questions about the program or any other questions for me, please email me at sean@gpt0.me. And now, without further ado, please welcome Edward Tien to the stage. Thank you so much, Edward, for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. It's such a pleasure to be able to speak to this group as well as have be part of such amazing guest speakers, including yourself. Previously the folks heard from our head of design, Robert, and head of machine learning, Alex. But in the past, just amazing teachers, pedagogical thought leaders in the space as well too, and to put this program together throughout the summer. Yeah, what a pleasure. And I think in the future, because we've heard such great things from teachers in the past five sessions as well too. We'll be continuing to run them in August or back to school. We're starting to look towards those, but we're so excited. So I'm going to share my screen today in terms of a slideshow. Right too. So the agenda of what I had prepared for folks today was starting to understand the motivations of GPT-Zero initially and how we've evolved since then, understanding the relationship between AI literacy, especially in education, to media literacy and information integrity, and also talking about some of the program itself, reflecting on it, why we're running kind of free year of GPT Zero for our certificate participants, and also our hopes for the future of our product and tool as it evolves. And for the fun part, I'm going to do 2 demos to the team of one is our writing feedback tool for classrooms, whether it's students, teachers, educators giving feedback, some updates to it that we're really excited by and being more pedagogical in how we give feedback, into our Chrome extension tools for teachers and understanding the authenticity of writing and some new and exciting updates we're making there this summer. And of course, answering any questions and having a really thoughtful discussion and that Sean will facilitate. So really excited for this. So just to jump in as well too, initial motivations and how we started. This is actually a photo of me with my own writing professor at Princeton, John McPhee. He's been teaching the same writing class for over 45 years. And he's just like consistently loved just going into kind of the creative process of writing, the editing process, the improvement, selecting words as well. I was lucky enough to take this class and while studying journalism as well, and really motivated kind of our initial conception for building a tool like GPT Zero. Actually, around exactly a year ago, this summer, I visited John, and he had kind of finished teaching as well, but was always really curious about everything related to writing, including AI tools. So we actually just played around with all the AI tools in the space as well too, and he had a lot of questions of what AI could do and what AI couldn't do. So he would ask, "Can AI, write in my style?" And we would go into ChatGPT and be like, write in the style of John McPhee, and we would look at it and it's like, okay, it could try, but it's not that good. We would look into, can AI do these like rewriting tools as well too, and be like, yes, there's some that do. And then he would ask something really interesting. He asked me, can AI tell you in terms of this essay and draft that this is so good? This is, one of the really like precious, unique pieces of work. Keep it, put it right in the top. Don't change anything about it. And I was reflecting that there wasn't an AI tool that did that. He was like, aha, that's a job of a great human editor. And really kind of thinking to me as well too that part of what we're doing and what hopefully we want our tools to do for students of the future is not just to rewrite, generate, increase the quantity as well too in terms of words and texts on the internet, but also to preserve the really great quality, originality, and human moments of writing. And in doing so, highlight what's good. It's human, not just detect AI. And secondly, a motivation we've always had since inception is bridging this divide between teachers and students. So not just myself, but the early team members who met our head of machine learning, kind of our CTO as well too, have been spending their career looking at detecting information accuracy on the internet and spam on the internet, whether they've worked at labs at Princeton, University of Toronto's AI Institute, Penn State's lab, or Montreal's AI Institute, and really motivated by kind of keeping authentic quality, but also bridging this divide that AI has driven. And it's been incredible 2.5, almost 3 years as well, too, of building tools, working with a lot of top natural language processing researchers and AI researchers, but also educators and partnering with them. And here's a quote from one of our partners, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weigarten. And she said, this tool, GPT-0, is a magnifying glass to help teachers create a better exchange of ideas with their students. And that was really resonated with our team because our philosophy is not to build a tool that's the traditional plagiarism checkers of catching or stopping an exchange of ideas or use of new technologies like AI, but to understand their adoption, but to bridge the gap. And um, one of the things you've heard from Sean throughout the webinar series is we decided this year, and we've never done this in the past, to give a free year of GPT-0 to all the teachers participating in the webinars with the ask that they put GPT-0 into their syllabi. And the motivation here was to be the leaders of how our tools should be used in the classroom, starting with a lot of teachers initially had an idea of, hey, let's keep the space for human use and not have AI writing. But as they adopt to encouraging students to experiment with new tools, what is the sweet spot and the balance? And this was a syllabus from one of the teachers that participated in the webinar and briefly spoke to, Eddie, who was a freshman writing professor in Oregon. And he shared that his first year of using GPT-0, it was certainly to prevent any AI use. But as he gradually adopted and evolved his class, he was experimenting with new ways of using our tool, including adding it directly to the syllabus and actually telling every one of his students to use it. And he had 80-20% rules and balancing 80% human writing and 20% AI usage. And we found this not only refreshing but exciting, where teachers can be comfortable depending on the the classroom, depending on the year, depending on the course material, seeing what the sweet spot is and bridging that gap between responsible AI usage and adoption in the world. Here was another case study where we worked with one of our partners at the University of Louisiana system, which was the first kind of university system to adopt GP0 as not only a tool for teachers, but also for the kind of entire university to understand what AI use is across an institution. And we found this really motivating because as we look to craft policy across departments, we have to understand how much AI adoption is happening at different levels, but also, different moments during the semester. Without that, crafting AI policy is like driving blind in a snowstorm. And it was really enjoyable to see is we had a lot of insights, such as whether it was end of semester or take homes, or we found that on some LMSs, actually it was quizzes that had one of the highest amounts of AI use because there was like short take home side as well as opposed to longer kind of assessments. And there was also a lot of intricacies in understanding, depending on the assignment or the moment in the semester, how students use different tools. So one thing I really wanted to share during this series was the idea of that AI literacy is media literacy. And it goes to some of the initial motivations and conceptions of GPT-0. Myself, I came from studied journalism at CS, came from a journalism background, was working a year at the BBC and planning to serve as an investigative reporter at the New York Times. This was actually our team early on. Olivia, designer, Edmund, one of our engineers, and Alex, co-founder with one of our first supporters of the tool, Mark Thompson, who was the CEO of the New York Times. Previous to that, the director of the BBC, currently the CEO of CNN. And he was really interested in supporting the development of GPT-0, not only in the classroom, but as students graduate and enter the workforce and consume information, news, and beyond. Because early on, Mark recognized that AI was transforming the media landscape, some for better, but some for worse in terms of quality and sources of information. And it's also really important to recognize as we teach AI tools and see them being adopted in the classroom that there is not only potential plagiarism problems with using tools, but also a plagiarism problem with AI tools themselves. That a lot of them are built upon the foundation of scraping news articles, media sites, journalistic work without attribution and using them to train the AI models. Because a lot of these generative models are what we call stochastic parrots in scraping huge amounts of internet for large parts of training data sets and using writers, authors, journalists' work without still, around 8 months ago, there was the New York Times OpenAI lawsuit. But aside from some discussions, no credible attribution. And those are also the big media players, not to mention a lot of the small players in the space. So I would say it's really important to just set the tone of any classroom of teaching AI tools with the idea of there's this huge media literacy question to continue to recognize that in adopting these tools. But to Mark's point of how has AI affected the information landscape? Something that we would really want to emphasize is that AI continues to hallucinate in terms of generating what sounds credible but is not real. So this was actually an investigation we did in partnership with the New York Times, where we looked at AI generated books on Amazon. And what was really just chaotic, insane is, but just incredibly bizarre is found these AI generated guidebooks, biographies, research material on Amazon being sold, but they were completely fake. So, for example, there would be a travel guide to Uganda that was being put on Amazon, but it was only around many, many months later, when someone bought the book, traveled to Uganda with a travel guide, that they would realize all the sites were made up because it was AI generated. And with this, we actually partnered with the New York Times. Amazon senior leadership actually reached out afterwards to see, hey, like recognize this problem. How can we avoid the bad press? But also, hopefully, what can we do about this and removing some of that AI generated books and content? But truly fascinating, bizarre in terms of what our information system and ecosystem is looking like. And a lot of folks, so one more thing we would mention is we started a partnership with Wikipedia, where now Wikipedia editors have access to GPT-0. And it's really interesting because now we're monitoring a lot of the internet is being AI generated. Wikipedia is actually really incredible because it's this huge community effort, but it's also what a large part of ChatGPT was initially built upon, scraping Wikipedia and training on them. And so we're actually very proud of this partnership and giving more, not just educators in classrooms, but folks kind of building the world that our students are consuming the information ecosystem afterwards, the tools to track our information ecosystem. So lastly is on this point is you might mention, and a lot of people think the solution to hallucinated AI content is building, AIs that search the internet before generation. So one example is Perplexity, one of these AI tools that searches the internet before generating content. We actually did this collaboration on a piece with Forbes looking into Perplexity and found out that almost it takes just 5 searches to get a piece of AI content and the citation on Perplexity that's AI generated itself. So the idea here is if you're mitigating hallucinations with searching the internet, but if the internet is AI generated, then you don't mitigate the problem. There's that secondhand hallucination that passed down and realize is, wow, actually, you still need third-party tools to preserve information authenticity and verify the sources we deal with, the sources even AI algorithms are searching on, but also the internet itself. And the world we're trying to avoid is one where AI is citing AI, and the whole internet is just this kind of hallucination, spam, jargon as well, and nothing real and original is being highlighted. And I think this really just motivates us in terms of what we build, how we educate students in using these tools, but also if there's one large takeaway we have today is that AI literacy in the classroom ties directly to media literacy beyond. And something we shared during the last office hours was our bibliography and sources tool that we built and launched as a solution to a lot of what we were seeing on the internet. And in education, the pain point we've heard repeatedly from teachers last semester is that they're seeing bibliographies, not just the essays themselves, but bibliographies that are AI generated, where when they click into the sources, links to articles that don't exist, were hallucinated, were referencing different parts of the text as well too, and teachers don't have the time to click through every link during an exam season. So one of our bibliography checker tools goes and verifies the bibliography searches on the internet, what are hallucinated sources, what's credible, and sometimes what is tied directly to the content itself, because you might have links AI generated that are real about, let's say, self-driving cars, but the article was about planes and understanding and verifying that. But also beyond the classroom, being not just a fact check, but a quality check on sources and whether the sources are AI generated as well. So yeah, we got a lot of coverage for kind of the initial product launch, but also a lot of improvements and iterations throughout the entire certificate series and based on feedback from teachers. And this is actually our homepage. So during this hour, you're welcome to try it out yourself It's just fairly direct. Go to gptzero.me. On our check bibliography tag as well too, you can try any of the example essays, whether it was AP English essay with AI generated sources or a human written one, or ask ChatGPT to generate an essay with sources, and you can see the quality, or putting in one of your own essays. And yeah, the tool is kind of free and accessible for your teachers this year. So we're really proud of it on the classroom side and beyond. Um, I'm actually going to pause here. I think this is the first part of the journey, the initial inception, and some of what we really value, and not just is some content AI, but as the source of information, accurate and responsible. And yeah, I see Sean's back, so we're going to pause here for some questions, and before we get to some of the fun demos too.
That's great. Thanks, Edward. There are already quite a few questions, so thank you everybody for jumping in and participating. I think one of the first questions I'm going to ask here is actually the first question that was posed. How do you differentiate AI use with human editing from AI use in its entirety? So, like something that's fully AI versus something that's AI that's not been human edited. Is there a way that GPT-0 differentiates that?
Yeah, that's a great question and a really, really relevant and topical question. Um, I don't think we mentioned this, Yushan, but just last week we launched Lightly Edited by AI as a tag. This is based on a lot of feedback from teachers that there's differentiation between AI generated completely
Mhm.
and written, but a lot go to kind of grammar helper tools, whether it's Grammarly or many others for light edit. Now there's Grammarly Go tools that are just basically a chat GPT upper and generate it all, but kind of the historical or traditional Grammarly as well too. And now since last week, we launched this tag where we have a lightly edited by AI differentiation throughout.
Nice. That's awesome. That will be really helpful, I think, to a lot of people.
Yeah, so
Another
I also
question.
just dropped the article with more information about that and how we do it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. That's awesome. Another question from someone in the audience. Um, they said they're a bit confused about the proposed use of GPT-0 by educators. They feel it's not designed for or capable of teaching critical thinking. So instead, they feel like it's teaching students how to avoid AI detectors better. Um, can it actually be used as more than a detection tool? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I'll share this in two ways. One, in the AI detection component, and two, more broadly. I think with the teacher's side as well too, is GPT-0 has really emerged as not only, I think initially the conception as well too, is that it was very binary in terms of something was AI or something was human. And this binary kind of way of thinking was carried on for a kind of a plagiarism model thinking because something is either plagiarized or not plagiarized. In the last 2 years, how people use our tools and repeatedly the questions are being asked is not just, is this AI, but how much AI as well too? What's the kind of usage as well? What's kind of the brainstorming component to the final essay? How much student thought went into it? And understanding that component is a teaching moment in terms of whether it was the example I gave of Eddie at the Oregon College shifting from allowing students to not use AI at all to using some of these tools with a balanced approach. To two is we also have an AI vocabulary tool we launched that's
Mhm.
not just about a detection algorithm, but it's practically monitoring the internet and seeing based on AI content what's the most frequent AI words. And that's kind of underground understanding of how language is evolving because frankly, AI is shifting language just as much as human shifted language. And we're in a period where language itself continues to evolve and and understanding balance too. But also the second point is if you imagine GP0 being initially AI detection, I think now we're and it's clear on the website that a third of the value add is understanding AI use, then it's also writing feedback and building a pedagogical feedback for how to improve the tools, motivated by editing being a huge part of the writing process, not just generating. And lastly, it's information sources. And understanding is what you're writing credible, is what the sources of AI, where is it coming from media, from Wikipedia, or is it from Reddit, where a lot of AI algorithms are scraped from, and checking that. So I think how that evolves is also really motivating to understand GPT zeros use in classrooms.
That's great. That's great. So one more question before we let you get back to your slides real quick. Is there, and I've gotten this question a lot from people because I know that there's kind of a model of use for GPT-0 that deals with kind of a threshold of how much AI is used. Have you seen with teachers that you've talked to, is there a benchmark to provide students for a threshold of AI generated text, or is there a goal for students to write first and then edit using AI? So how are you seeing it used?
Yeah, that's a great question as well too. In terms of what we've had, and one more article we'll share, we recently launched explainability for our AI detection as giving context of why certain things are being categorized by AI. In terms of a threshold, we're working with a lot of teachers to understand a threshold, but you could see something that's entirely 100% AI generated or anything 90 to 100% as very confident. We launched more of these confident tags that tells kind of gives teacher more interpretability because a lot of times it's also based on like, wow, 9 out of 10 times we would have seen this in our data set as an AI generated text and giving that background and context. So let me search that and I'll explainability news GP zero article in terms of GP zero news. Um, yeah, so I would also love to hear from teachers, and we're already seeing in the syllabus kind of submission, so we'll point out some how a lot of teachers are thinking through the um, the threshold as well too. One thing I would add is compared to other AI detection tools, we're fairly on the conservative side that we would are less trigger happy, as in we would way rather a false negative than a false positive. So it's
Right.
all kind of threshold based. And especially because GPT-0 is tuned in education, we have large partnerships in education data sets as well too, with universities as well as with education organizations. And we kind of built our focus in education training data and device training data. But we also have kind of enterprise partners like trust and safety platforms or food review platforms that we actually give a different model where we turn the threshold specifically for those tags at a higher side too. So NLP explainability post. Yeah, I was gonna say, Sean, if you have one more question, and while I find this blog post, we
Sure. Yeah. This is a pretty good one, I think. How do you see GPT-0 different from other detection tools? And what are its strengths?
yeah. So aside from being the first one in the market as well too, I think it's pretty clear that GPT-0 cares about understanding interpretability, also about usage in education and how these tools should evolve in education. So one example is we launch kind of this natural language explainability to give context of what our AI direct detection algorithms are focusing on to make this determination. So you get to have that background. Confidence scores, we're the only one in the space to launch it. Lightly by edited by AI, we're the only ones to launch it. Also, kind of pairing this with authenticity tools of I'll demonstrate on the Chrome extension for teachers to use as they watch their student writing and encouraging kind of making that leap. How we see it is you have the traditional plagiarism checkers that are all about this binary kind of plagiarism model. And then you have a lot of folks that are just putting tools outside for kind of this like quick like advertisement website tools, kind of this like AI just like maximalist approach. And what GPT Zero kind of strikes a balance is being really thoughtful in the education of how AI is using is evolving the classroom, not just binary, but being adopted responsibly, providing that interpretability, but also not just building an AI detector for the sake of building an AI detector, but having a research team that wants to understand and push how this technology is evolving. One of our kind of research advisors that work regularly with the ML team leads AI model training for the Llama model at Meta as well too, but also understanding how models are evolving throughout. And I would say, I think it makes us proud that we do have a lab and want to do actual research here in the space and see how it applies to academia. And I think that's a huge differentiator.
That's great. That's great. Cool. I will let you get back to your slides now.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. I did find that article about natural language explainability, and we'll have time for more questions at the end too, as we keep on going. All right. So I'm sharing the screen as well too. So we're going to do some demos. And this is the fun part of the webinars. The first demo we want to show was our writing feedback feature. So we built out a writing feedback feature, and it's been as part of GPT-0 for the last year. But what we were really focused on, talking to teachers, is being more pedagogical in the flow of giving writing feedback. In journalism, a lot of it, we talk about the inverse pyramid style of communication, which is put the most important information at the very top and get to the nitty-gritty. I think the same is true in giving feedback. So what's really unique is after writing a piece of feedback through every essay, we decided to categorize it into three steps. First, content, kind of the overall high level flow and thought process. Two is clarity, how to make something clearer in terms of how we're communicating. And only at the very end, grammar. And what we found as well is I actually had a discussion with a teacher recently about how they're grading and found it fascinating, where this teacher shared that they've changed how they're grading in one way. Pre-2022, they used to care a lot about grammar edits and grammar corrections. So if an essay had really poor grammar, they would penalize the students. Nowadays, this teacher was sharing that they don't. If the essay has poor grammar, they actually put less emphasis in that and focus more on the content and clarity of the writing because they realize, well, that student probably didn't use AI. It's very easy for another student that use AI tools to have corrected all their grammar as well too. This is not the playing field that's level, and this is not the hill to die on. And it's really interesting because, as the tools evolve, they realize, well, actually, in the real world, there'll be quick grammar fixes. So what I should adjudicate the students on should be the content, the thought process of their writing. And I found that fascinating as the shift in terms of how in classroom grading was appearing. One thing we wanted to share to get feedback on is actually this is the first time we demoed it and will be only as part of our grammar and feedback tool tomorrow is custom and targeted feedback. So I'm gonna run a writing feedback tool on an essay. Mhm. And as this runs, the question I'm going to ask is, do you prefer the first one without some of this customization, or how much customization would you want both as a teacher and giving feedback, but also in terms of some teachers we've talked to have said they would way prefer giving this tool to students as opposed to a ChatGPT or even a Grammarly because it strikes a balance in terms of pedagogical thinking and also still encouraging the students to think through edits. And I'm curious what about I'm about to demo with this kind of more custom feedback would change that or tip that balance in whether this would still be a tool writing teachers are comfortable giving to their students at what grade and what moment. So please feel free to share any thoughts in the chat. But similar to kind of the first screen, it still has high-level content feedback. But what's changed here is there's places to upload rubrics as a teacher and prompts for the feedback to be more targeted specifically to the course. There's an export to Google Docs button for teachers to be able to share that feedback. They can share that feedback with the edits or the suggestions directly to the student through one of our share buttons, but they can also share that feedback without the edits, the suggested edits as more comments through clicking open in Google Docs. And it says generates open in Google Docs with all the comments at the top, not the suggested edits, as something they can provide to the students. What we're also going to demo is our Chrome extension that in the summer we're developing a way for teachers to also quickly give comments and targeted to their rubric or their assignment within a Google Docs through our Chrome extension. But here's what I want to focus on. Selecting text you'd like to focus feedback on. So this feature doesn't work if you're just asking for edits or changes more broadly, but is actually encouraging the students to first select a specific piece of text they're focused on. And um, can you edit and suggest? Can you suggest to the student how to write this with less flowery language and running specific comments too through targeted feedback. Mhm. So the idea here is we're also in the junction point in building this product of saying whether we want this text box to be enabled for someone to just ask about an entire essay or to only limit it such that it's targeted interactions where whether it's a teacher trying to generate a comment to share to a student via Google Docs or a share button or a student making improvements to be targeted to a specific moment and to ask them to put in that extra thinking. So maybe if it's a binary question, I would really appreciate in the chat if teachers could share whether they prefer this to be, you can ask for feedback on the entire essay and generate a couple at the time, or limit it to be only kind of targeted feedback. And we're open to both in our product development process. And we've heard both. We've heard, hey, this is a useful writing tool. Just this is basically just like you can take your essay and ask ChatGPT how it thinks about that essay or ask it to give feedback, but with the added benefit of being very positional through our tool and targeted here. Or some teachers saying, hey, the really value add is asking students to think about and read through the essays themselves and understand what do they want to edit. And editing is just as important to the writing process as the generation. So why don't you limit that and continue to make kind of students do that extra thinking? So please would, yeah, really appreciate any thoughts or preferences. Um, I'm gonna pause for a second before showing the second tool. Um, yes, so students, I'm just looking at some of the chat as well too. Students can add prompts and rubrics to generate ideas. Both options would be useful depending on context as well. Yeah, reading through all the available feedback would be a lot of feedback, so maybe targeted is more thoughtful. Yeah, so yeah, Sean, I don't know if you see any kind of conclusions in the chat between those questions in this first demo.
There were some questions. I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions, so I'm not sure if you want to answer questions just about the demo or not. There was a question about whether or not you can turn off or hide suggestions in the tool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's super interesting. So our current tool doesn't have a turn on or hide capability, but I think in the future that's something we would be really interested in building. I wonder if this is for the perspective of a writer. Should I turn on hide sessions, or this question is coming from the perspective of an educator? Do I want my student to turn on or hide the suggestions? If the latter, currently, we would encourage a teacher to click export to Google Docs, and it exports without any of the suggestions, but only the comments, um, versus sharing the GPT-0 version of it, which comes with all the suggestions to a student. In the future, we would think through kind of what's the custom capabilities too.
Okay, great. Yeah, and there's been a couple of questions both in the Q&A and in chat, and this has come up before in other sessions, that when people run an essay through GPT-0, it comes back with varying results. Like the same essay can come back with a 99% AI versus 25% AI, but it's the same essay. So can you address some of that? Because I know that AI is not always accurate, right? So can you address sort of the accuracy side of things?
Yeah, this is I'm seeing a comment on getting like five different grades and results. So I would say this demo is just scoped to the writing feedback tool in terms of whether it's enabling teachers to give comments or students to iterate with kind of the three-step flows. I think last office hours, Robert Head of Design might have demoed more of a grading tool. So we have this short grader that is like you can upload an AP syllabus and giving results. And what he hasn't demoed is we actually have this new AI reviewer coming out where it actually makes it more consistent throughout and actually allows not just teacher to just like click the short, what's the grade, but also kind of train to their style as well to get this consistency and learn. Um, at some point, I would love to demo that tool. And I think it's in beta and on the tab. It's pretty hidden because it's still in beta and development. And we have a working group of around 40 teachers that Robert is giving feedback with throughout the summer and really enjoying that. But it's still available in this like AI reviewer icon to play around, which makes it more consistent. I'm trying to see. Oh, yeah, this is a great idea for I see one on ESL oriented feedback as well too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's so interesting as well. I wonder if we could have like a custom, not just like a rubric button, but it's like a custom version of like ESL oriented feedback directly with that, where it's already pre-provided to the teacher.
Yeah,
Mm.
that'd be super useful. There was a similar question to the previous one it's focused on if if an essay comes back as evaluated with as being partly or 85% AI, for example, but the student says, no, absolutely, I wrote this entirely by myself. What what happens there? Like, what do you suggest teachers do in that moment?
Yeah, I suggest teachers have their like criteria for AI use, and if it's above, have two things. One is students show their work, and two is kind of iterate or work live with the teacher. Once it there's the two moments. One is this the initial kind of the first time the student's doing this, or is this like a historical pattern where actually five, six, seven essays, I like this or has this deviated a lot from the student's writing style? And two is looking at the tool. Actually, I'll just continue in the demo because I'm about to demo this in terms of understanding authorship throughout the student's writing flow. So I'm going to open Google Docs as well too. So I was going to demo a part of our Chrome extension that we upgraded and improved this summer and found really awesome. And then two is I'll demo talk about some of the more feedback throughout the Chrome extension tools. But the short answer, Sean, there is I think it's important to look at authorship, and it's also important to understand kind of the patterns of the student's writing, as this is a tool box and kind of a Swiss Army knife and not the final kind of like arrow. And two is I would encourage teachers to provide this tool directly to their students, as some have. I think not, it also depends and varies on the classroom, but some have because now the students can iterate throughout and kind of understand what are the percentages and the balances. What I'm about to show is within this Google Docs, here's an article or a blog post our team was writing about natural language explainability for AI detection results and providing reasons of why our models focus on something being more like AI rather than just being like a clearly AI generated or seeing the source. And I think that's also really encouraging to share to a student because it helps them understand their writing better. And no other AI tools in this space actually provide this or AI detection tools. But what I'm going to click here on the Chrome extension is our authorship reports and replay videos. So I'm also going to click watch in 60 seconds and it gives a draft of how this is being built, written, thought through. We were actually the first to launch this product before any other in the space of kind of a authorship product around a year and a half or two ago that we're really proud of because it's, in our opinion, still kind of consistently hearing from teachers the preferred one in terms of actually being able to jump through what are kind of the pace moments as well, and just quickly iteratively seeing that at the bottom here, the pace, being able to really jump through different authors because not only for the teachers, for individual students, whether it's AI generated or not, we've heard a lot of teachers of they have group assignments or group writes, and some students, even pre-2022 in ChatGPT, some students doing a fair amount of work compared to others, and just quickly seeing that who's doing 99% of the work versus who's doing the 0%. As you can see, that's me here doing 0% of the work and understanding kind of that balance between AI, human, and another student, another human too. So what we've also are building through this reports is giving quick summaries on understanding kind of the typing patterns of student, quick AI detection is one of the badges, but also basically their proof of work. So yeah, we would. This is available as well too. This is getting really updated through the summer because we're hearing a lot of great feedback from teachers. And if you download our Chrome extension, it's part of the toolkit GPT-0 provides to teachers. Um, in addition to that, we're also adding the comment and feedback interactions directly within our Chrome extension, not just that writing feedback part, but you can imagine what we showed where you highlight over text, you ask for comment instead of generating it within our platform, which we would still encourage because it has kind of the categorize like comments and framework already. And you can still export it as a Google Docs or click share directly with the edit to a student. But also directly within Google Docs where a teacher can highlight. And there's a text box in GPT-0 where they can put in comments, upload a rubric, choose specific kind of focus areas, and generate those comments within the Google Docs comments interface. Um, Lastly, throughout this interaction, I would say we really want to continue to strike the balance between what's pedagogical and actually involves thought process and what's being kind of this like AI generated like thoughtless feedback because one of the most important um, frameworks to building GPT-0 is I would again emphasize the editing process is just as important to the writing process as this initial draft, initial generation, and giving thoughtful comments, targeted comments is a huge part of that editing process. I actually was reading in the chat and saw a few teachers say they prefer the targeted edits because it encourages whether it's an editor, an educator, or a student to think through, which is really interesting to read. So that's the second part of the demo as well too. And yeah, please feel free to give it a try as well too. Give us any feedback. Yeah, Sean, should I pause here for any questions, or I have just like one or two more slides? Could do either.
You go ahead. We'll finish up with questions at the end.
Yeah, awesome. So we tell So linear. Yeah, actually you can. So interestingly, we have kind of understandings and built kind of the ML for like typing patterns as well too. So you can still tell with linear typing or not and some of the understanding. And yeah, we would view this both as kind of a toolbox as well, or a Swiss Army knife or a balance as well, in addition to AI detection, but also plagiarism detection, but also understanding student writing throughout. But most importantly, also kind of the sources of information, bibliographies of like AI generated bibliographies, and kind of shaping that toolkit. Uh, how's this different from Draftback? It's free. Um, it works better. It's been around for 2 years, and it also analyzes typing patterns. But that's a good question, Catherine. And also, it's yeah, it's you can jump directly to the essay, see entirely, and jump into kind of the copy and paste moments as well. So it also allows it to zoom focus throughout. Draftback is another tool that actually replaced the Google Edit history. And then lastly, I think another differentiator is we're going to be adding, not in the current version, but soon next week, in addition, the ability to see the edits between different writers, whether it was student A, student B, or an editor. So those are some of the differences. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Back to slides. So those were some demos. I hope you enjoyed them. I think this is a part of the GPT Zero platform and set of tools where we focus on AI detection and authenticity, writing feedback in the editing process, and lastly, bibliography and sources of information is three real important pillars to our team. But also, it's just part of our favorite part of the work as well, and showing tools, but actually getting feedback and hearing it live from educators. You might recall Sean mentioned we decided to do this at the start of the certificate program to offer a free year of GPT Zero to teachers um, that complete this program because we wanted to um, have some folks be the leaders in shaping how our tools are used in the next year, whether it was AI detection, feedback, or sources of information. It's changed drastically since 2 years or even a year ago because AI use in the classroom and beyond has evolved. Really awesome throughout this series, we had 484 teachers share their syllabi to us with GPT Zero placed in it. This is a link to the Google form for any teachers in the webinar series that want to participate and get the year free that have not yet kind of shared an example where they've added their syllabus. And it's really encouraging and motivating because we go through every one of these submission requests one by one, all 484 of them, and read them. And we read them to get a better understanding of how folks are encouraging and introducing AI to the classroom. And around, 80% of them will like reply back with the email of like, this was great. We actually have built, the code as well for the certificate program, but also this was a really great idea from Sean, an actual, a second code for discounted GPT Zero, not the year free that folks can share to three of their peers or colleagues or friends during kind of the back to school year is a heavily discounted version, but only the free version for folks that actually complete the webinar series with us. And it's around 10% of them will email back and be like, hey, we actually wanted to see more, and could you actually change up your submission? And around 10% of them will actually email back to say, hey, this was so awesome. Like, we're so encouraged by what you're ready to do with GPT Zero next year, next semester. Can we reach out? Can we hear from you? Can we write and feature you on our news article? Can we just like talk to you and how we build product, have our head of design talk to you, answer any questions as well too. So around some folks are definitely reading every one of them and are so encouraged and excited. We've seen people add it directly to their LMS syllabi, whether it was on Canvas or Moodle or a Blackboard. We've seen people share both how they've shifted last year. They're adding syllabus in terms of using GPT-0 as detection, but also different nuanced understanding of AI use as a brainstorming tool, as a tool for students who run their drafts through, as a tool to also add and share the writing feedback editing tool and the bibliography tool. We've heard some folks put GPT-0 and add the bibliography check and tell us that they would be more encouraged and likely to add their students who run their essays through given the bibliography tool because it's also an improvement for the student in terms of their source and quality of information, even if the sources weren't AI generated. It's hugely encouraging seeing these. So please feel free to send us or kind of if you haven't yet, that's a shortcut or a QR code. And lastly, I want to say a huge thank you. A huge thank you to every teacher that went through and participated in our webinar series and our office hours. Congratulations on finishing. We have like a kind of certificate design our team is going to be sending out soon. This is kind of a thank you as well too. In addition to that, you're free of GPT Zero. And also, yeah, thank you for giving us feedback throughout the process and being a huge part of our journey and developing a platform and tool and how our tool evolves. Including to the thank you, please don't hesitate to reach out to any member of our team, whether it's myself, you heard from Robert the last webinar in design, or our machine learning team. Here are our emails. And also a huge thank you to Sean for being such an amazing host and facilitator throughout this program. I think he's just been so encouraging, so nuanced and thoughtful in his feedback to us, to our tools, to other teachers you work with. And Yeah, it wouldn't have been such an amazing certificate program series without Sean's work and being part of it. So I just wanted to say thanks, Sean. I really appreciate it too.
Well, thank you, Edward. No, it's been a pleasure to be the host of this program and make connections with so many educators along the way. It's been fantastic. So there's just one last question I want to throw at you really quickly before we go, and that comes out of the Q&A here. How would you recommend that teachers communicate all of these features and sort of the kind of ethos or whatever it is behind GPT-0 um, to other people at their school? So how do they spread the word basically from what they've learned here? And also kind of along those same lines, are there plans for future professional learning coming out of GPT-0?
Yeah, totally. Well, I would say three things. One is please, we're going to be sharing like a kind of like a certificate program summary, blog posts, recordings as well too, via email or elsewhere. Kind of some like certificate designs. Please feel free to share those directly to your colleagues, peers, friends, whether it's on social media or directly as well too. Two is if you kind of take this for your GPT Zero. We'll also have a code for three colleagues to get this heavily discounted throughout their year. And So two thoughts. One, high level, I think a huge takeaway is compared to other AI detection tools that are a short panacea or coming from plagiarism model. Our philosophy is to be a long-term solution that bridges the gap from a teacher and student in the classroom and facilitates responsible adoption of AI. And we are dedicated and committed and here to work with you to build the tool throughout that process, even if it takes more work than having a short term, hey, this was AI, this was human as well too, in a short term kind of moment and building and doing that long work. And I think that's philosophically the biggest difference between GPT-0 and any other AI detection or plagiarism tool. And secondly, I would say the space is shifting. It's not just about it's AI or not. Is it about did the student actually think through, go through the editing process, go through the feedback process? Can I provide a tool that supports that and facilitates that? Because editing is just as important as generating. And two is, did the student look through the sources of information? Because a huge part of the AI literacy is actually media and information literacy and having quality information. So having those two additional points is also a huge shift. Lastly, I think we're going to be inviting Sean back and a few other facilitators to run one more webinar and one more office hour, August 15th or late August, as kind of a bonus back to school webinar and office hour for any teacher and colleague that's open to it. That was kind of actually just only in the last 2 weeks we chatted about it, but we were excited based on all the feedback we've heard from folks to do kind of one additional series.
That's great. That's great. And I want to double down on I've done a lot of work in education and around ed tech and sort of being a widely a critic of ed tech over the last 23 years. And I do really want to double down on the fact that GPT-0 is actually listening to teachers. They are interested in what you have to say. They want teachers to be involved in product development. That is incredibly unique. That just doesn't really happen much in ed tech. So I just want to double down on that as a teacher, as someone who's been watching this space for a very, very long time. I appreciate it. I'm sure that other people do too. So.
Thanks, Sean. That's so good. And I'm also seeing an idea of a GPT-0 ambassador program. I think that's something we'd be very excited by as well, too, coming out of the feedback from folks in the chat as well, too. It's not something we've done in the past, but something we're definitely would be really excited by, too. But again, thanks, John, as well too. We're so appreciative of this webinar series and what we learned as a team too.
Course, yeah. So thank you, Edward, for a great presentation. This has been a great way to round out the program. As we close, just a couple of notes before everyone takes off. When the webinar closes or when you leave, a very short survey will pop up in your browser window. Do take a minute to give us some feedback via that survey. And as a reminder, I'll be sharing links to the recording of today's sessions by email on Monday. I'll also be giving, that will also include a link to Edward's slides. And also there will be a survey that will be linked there too, that this survey is the final survey for the entire program. So it will give you the opportunity to give us feedback for the whole program, but also to self-report your attendance, because I know a lot of people had to attend asynchronously. So this is actually an opportunity for you to self-report your attendance. That will happen on Monday by email. If you don't get that email, please email me and let me know. My email is sean@gpt0.me. This has been the final session of GPT-Zero's Teaching Responsibly with AI certificate program. And as I said, it has been an absolute pleasure to host this program and to connect with so many of you. So thank you again for attending today's office hours and for joining us for this program, and have a great summer.
Cheers, folks. Thanks.